Let's all stand and worship the Lord tonight in song hymn number 40. Bailey and them up, the musicians opened with this song this morning. I love it. You know it. You know it already. Are you washed in the blood? Let's sing that song. And you came to Jesus for cleansing power. Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you fully trusting in His grace this hour? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you washed in the blood? In the soul cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you walking daily by the Savior's side? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Do you rest each moment in the crimson light? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you washed in the blood, in the soul cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? When the bridegroom cometh with your robes being white, are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? With your soul be ready for the mansion's bride, and you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you washed in the blood, in the soul cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Lay aside the garments that are stained with sin, and be washed in the blood of the Lamb. There's a fountain flowing for the soul unclean. Oh, be washed in the blood of the Lamb. Are you washed in the blood, in the soul cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you washed in the blood, in the soul cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Amen. Amen. Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Amen. That's the only way you get in. You can brag about a lot of things, Jesus said, but what you need to be proud of, you really got to brag about, your name's been written in the Lamb of God's right. Amen. Amen. All right, well, sit down. You bothered me standing up. It's good to see you in the Lord's house tonight. Appreciate y'all coming out and practice, and I'm looking forward to revival. Don't forget, down on your calendar, February the 17th, that morning through Wednesday night. And like I say, I'm excited about the branch crowd. That group will be here Sunday evening to sing special music, and the Rogers family from Rutherford, Samuel, Hannah, and Rebecca, and Mama singing. I'm looking forward to that. Been a while since we've had them here, and Miss Shields bringing the kids. Boy, what a blessing they are. And just excited what God's going to do. I know I need revival. I need it. I truly need it. Like I said, I've looked at y'all long enough. Y'all need it too. But like you can't get too much of him, can you? If he can just get more of us. We can just get more of us. But also, I just worked out. I was going to make sure I didn't write it down because I'd remember it. Yeah. But if I remember it, I'll let you know what it is. I was going to tell y'all. But anyway, it was important too. All right, New Jerusalem on the 10th and Congo. Okay, y'all be praying.
recorded.
Good job.
We can get
Well, should I say pray for the people? It's going to be good. How much? Y'all remember mom-in-law, she's not doing well. Please be praying for her. I do appreciate all our that are shut in for sure. Continue to pray for Butch while he's, it'll probably be about a month before he has any more treatment. You would be praying for him.
Have a bridal shower next Sunday at 4 o'clock. For Shelby and, or like Bible service and bridal shower for Shelby and John next Sunday.
Okay, next Sunday, White Bible service. Of course, that's just the women.
Yeah, that's at 4 o'clock.
All right, men
And
and
youth
women.
choir practice again next Sunday at 5, please, everybody.
Okay. Well, the good thing is, I just remember what I was going to tell you. Any men, of course, some of you, any man that's interested, Tuesday, we're going to be meeting at my house at 5 o'clock. We're going to Spartanburg. Jason's going to do a prison training for us. It'll take about 45 minutes in Spartanburg, and then we'll get our blue cards. But that'll be good for 3 years. We'll go in any prison in South Carolina. So if you're interested, you meet at my house at 5 o'clock. Again, we'll be home by 9:30, 10. It just depends. And who's driving? Let's praise the Lord in song. We'll let them fall towards us, man.
Standing on the promises, hymn number 323, let's all stand. Standing on the promises of Christ my King, through eternal ages let His praises ring. Glory in the highest I will shout and sing, standing on the promises of God. Standing, standing on the promises of God, my Savior. Standing, I'm standing on the promises of God. Standing on the promises again I fail. When the howling storms of doubt and fear assail, by the living word of God I shall prevail. Standing on the promises of God. Standing on the promises of God, my Savior. I'm standing on the promises of God. Standing on the promises of Christ the Lord. Bound to Him eternally by love's strong cord. Overcoming daily with the Spirit's sword. Standing on the promises of God. Standing on the promises of God, my Savior. I'm standing on the promises of God. Standing on the promises again I will. Listening every moment to the Spirit's call. Resting in my Savior as my all in all. Standing on the promises of God. Standing on the promises of God, my Savior. I'm standing on the promises of God. Amen.
drop away. That caught you by surprise, didn't it? Book of Job. Guess what chapter? Oh, okay. Well, y'all the slowest listeners. If y'all listen faster, we can get through this thing a lot quicker. Job chapter 1. Job chapter 1. And basically what we're hoping to get is basically the message of Job. And as we get into the book of Job further, as I've told you, there's so much in the book of Job, and I'll do my best, I promise, to speed it up once we get into the other stuff. All right. Oswald Chambers, a lot of y'all have used his devotional books, I'm sure. Oswald Chambers said, suffering is the heritage of the bad and the penitent and of the Son of God. Now listen to what else he said. Each one ended in the cross. The bad thief was crucified, the penitent thief was crucified, and the Son of God was crucified. By these signs we know the widespread heritage of suffering. Remember the reason I dragged it out so much about Job? Painting the picture as to the kind of man he was. Job himself, you know, the one, the perfect and upright man that our study is all about, one that feared God and eschewed evil. Even he himself said in Job chapter 14 verse 1, we all know that one by heart, man that is born of woman is a few days and what?
Full of trouble.
Full of trouble. And that word trouble means full of commotion, full of rage, full of noise, full of, basically this is what it means, the crash of thunder. Yeah. And it didn't even say anything about being married there either. It just is this stuff comes without being married. But really, one has to ask the question, where does all this trouble come from? Where does it come from? Well, some may answer, well, all the good comes from God, and all the bad comes from the devil. Now, wait a minute. You say that, but you know what you're implying when you say that? That nothing good can come out of the trouble or bad we face. Think about it. And if I were to ask you the question, well, where did Job's trouble come from? God or the devil? All right, well, I mean, we'll get into a long theological discussion here before we All right. But as a kid, have anybody, other than being a kid here, how many has never been a kid in here? We've all, I love confusing her. We've all, I said, if you're not a kid, how many in here have never been a kid? Everybody's a kid. Let me just go back. When I was a kid, I had parents that believed in biblically raising a child, where it says, you spare the rod, you spoil the child. They didn't believe in spoiling children. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of times they spanked me when I did not deserve it. What I'm trying to say is most of the pain I experienced as a child was from those that loved me the most.
Amen. Amen.
And as a child, those things that I thought were good for me, come to find out they wasn't so good for me. As a child, those things that I thought was bad for me, such as spankings, come to find out when I got older and looked back, they wasn't so bad after all. In other words, what I thought to be bad and unfair as a kid, I came to realize was good, really, as an adult. And I'll tell you, if you get that point, it'll help you understand the book of Job. History. Now, when I talk history, I'm talking about even, we all have a history. Matter of fact, after today, we created more history. History, life itself in general, teaches us good things can and do come out of bad and painful situations. I was already shared with a while ago, Clay, the death of Ethan, bad thing for that family, tragedy. But guess what? Already one of his friends has got saved. Amen. Hey, we talk about John Bunyan, who wrote Pilgrim's Progress. Where did he write that book from? From prison. Most of the Psalms were all prefaced by way of difficulty. Most of the epistles were written from prison cells. How about the good that still comes by way of the suffering of the cross? Without that suffering, without that bad, without that evil, we would have no hope of being born again. Jesus, who for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross. What was the joy? The joy of seeing the birth of the church and the living God, seeing sinners come to know him as Lord and Savior. That's the joy. You know, but before the good can come from the bad has to happen to the good. Are we on the page right now? All right. Let's look. How about Job? Where are we at, by the way? Chapter 1, y'all say? We done got past the challenge of the Satan, you remember, of the Lord saying, hey, have you recognized my servant Job? And we've gone through all that. But now tonight we're going to look at what I labeled as Job's tsunami experience. We all remember, 2011. Matter of fact, I was on the way to the Philippines, remember, and we had to go all the way around Japan after that tsunami that killed approximately 19,000 people. I mean, how that thing just boom, all of a sudden, it came aggressively, wiping out everything in its path. In other words, it was a bad day for many along Japan's eastern coastline. But then I think about, remember, some of y'all remember very distinctly 2004, that tsunami that swept across the Indian Ocean. Hit 18 different countries and wiped out 250,000 people. I mean, and those affected by this tsunami were caught completely by surprise. I didn't even know what a tsunami was until about 2004. Never heard of it. And I remember seeing hit Indonesia, 2018, last year Indonesia got hit again with another one. But Job, what I'm trying to see, many of these people woke up to a normal day, and then the tsunami hit. Job awoke to a normal day that turned into a bad day. Job knew nothing about what was taking place behind the scenes in heaven. He didn't have a clue. But he was certainly about to feel the effects of it on this certain day. Look at verse 12. And the Lord said to Satan, behold, all that he hath is in thy power, only upon himself put not forth thine hand. Again, let's say it again. The devil is God's devil. Whatever the devil does, God allows him to do it, and God puts boundaries on what he can do. There's never been a runaway affliction, conflict, whatever you want to describe it, in the hands of God. Amen? Now Job was hit with what I call 4 tidal waves, one right behind the other. Wave number 1, the Bible says, the Sabians stole all these oxen, all these asses, and killed all the servants that tended to those. That was simply 500 yokes of oxen and 500 she-asses, the Bible says. That wiped him out. And then wave number 2, fire fell from heaven, burning up. If it burned up all the sheep, it got 7,000 of his sheep and the servants that tended them. Then wave number 3, the Chaldeans come along, steal 3,000 camels, and then kill 3,000 servants kill the servants tending them. And then wave number 4, a storm comes through, collapsing the house that all 10 of his children are in, killing all of his children. Now folks, I'm sure we've all had a bad day. But you ain't never had a bad day like Job's bad day. I mean, by the end of the day, Job has gone from riches, not rags to riches, but riches to rags. In one day. He lost all tangible resources of wealth. The livestock that he had of oxen, camels, asses, and sheep. He lost all signs of stature, if you will. I mean, most of the servants that he had working for and are under him, they're dead too. He lost all of his lineage, all of his progeny. All 7 sons and 3 daughters are now dead. They've been killed. And then if you read further, even in the book of Job, you'll recognize where he even lost his good reputation. You say, well, how'd that happen? Well, his tsunami experience was interpreted as simply as a sign of divine displeasure. Passerbyers would shake their head and say, true, this was judgment of God. There's sin in his life. My. Can you imagine if that had social media back then? Just imagine if that had Facebook and Snapchat and all that other crazy mess y'all got. Brother, they'd been lit up that day. Did you hear about Job? Wonder what he did to deserve this. Maybe he's not as good a man as I thought he was. Can you imagine the stories they had out by the end of the day? I heard he murdered his brother. Some of y'all look guilty. Just listen. Okay. But what I want to focus on tonight, notice Job's, this is the way I label it, Job's testimonial expression. Notice first of all, we find his expression of pain. Look at verse 20. Then Job arose after receiving word of all his losses, especially the loss of his 10 children. The Bible said he rent his mantle and shaved his head. Now that don't say a lot to us in our culture. But I'm telling you, it says a lot concerning his culture. I read something, two doctors by the name of Thomas and Ray, that's their last name. They composed a chart of events and the amount of stress that those events cause. Now what I mean? Events such as divorce, financial loss, bad report, sickness, and heart attacks, and all that. They just made a chart and give so many points to each one of those events that were stressful by way of interviewing people and talking with them. That's where they come up with this chart. And according to the statistics, their interviews and the chart they made, they said anybody with 300 points were on the verge of becoming very sick because of all the stress they were under. Well, if you took Job's situation and used their chart, you would come up with 1,017 points. In other words, Job ought to be getting real sick with all the stress of what he was under. And to rent one's mantle and to shave one's head was an outward expression of one's internal grief. Then all you've got to do is read through the Bible and see where others did that. Jacob rent his clothes and he mourned for his son Joseph when he heard that he's dead, or they thought he was dead when they brought that coat covered with blood. He said, truly he's been mangled by animal, he's dead. And you know the rest of the story about Jacob and Joseph. Jacob mourned. I mean, brother, he was sick with grief. David rent his garments and mourned over the loss of his son. Mordecai rent his garments and went into the midst of the city, putting ashes upon himself after hearing the mad news of the decree that had been made. But what I want you to understand tonight is we read through the book of Job and we kind of just, we read like a man just lost everything he owned and 10 children too, and we read it like, well, that's a normal thing. No, it wasn't a normal thing. His grief was real. His pain was real. His hurting he was a broken man. I mean, his skilp has turned into a crawl and the wind is completely out of his sail. And Job's unparalleled misfortune left him too crushed in heart to put up any false front, if you will. And it reminds us all here tonight that Christianity is not a Sunday morning production to be put on. It's a way of life. And Christianity is about being real. It's about sharing your hurts and your pains and a place you can come and say, I am hurt.
Amen.
My pain is real. As a matter of fact, Paul even wrote in his second letter to the church at Corinth, he said, we are comforted in our tribulation, that we may be able to comfort them which are troubled by the comfort wherewith we ourselves were comforted of God, or by God. That's the reason God puts all this together. You're going to go through things you don't understand why. Just like this morning, I was telling the kids, I said, God is a resume writer. There's going to be things go on in our lives that we would have never put it in our day plan, or would have never wanted to be a part of our life. But we'll go through those things, and while we're going through it, we'll say, what in the world? What good is this? And in about 2 or 3 years down the road, 5, 10, whatever, you're going to look back and say, now I understand why I went through that. I'm now able to minister to this couple that's going through the same thing we went through. I'm able to help this couple here that's going through hardship in marriage like we went through. I'm going to tell this. When Kim and Jordan come to the house and Sharon got God's call on his life, I sat there and laughed. And he looked at me kind of funny. I'm wondering, why is he laughing? I'm crying my eyeballs out, and I'm sharing what God's doing. I might have been laughing, but that was just a way of shouting. I told him, I said, I'm not laughing. What I'm doing, I'm reliving my call into the ministry. It's like I was hearing my own story again. Amen. Amen. Praise the Lord. Amen. But notice Job's pain, his expression of pain, it's real. But here's something else. Notice Job's expression of praise in the midst of it all. Look at verse 20 there. In the middle of verse 20, the Bible said he fell down upon the ground. And worship. You know, we know, I don't have to explain this, but we know there's usually one of two responses that usually happens when adversity comes our way. One of those responses, many will abandon their praise. They get mad at God. They say, that's it, I'm done. I'm done with God. If this is the way I get repaid, I wish they could just record themselves and listen to what they're saying. If this is the way I get repaid, repaid for what? What you do to be repaid? Well, I come to church. Well, bless your heart. Bless your heart. I'll be on your face before God, giving Him praise and thanks. You've got a place to go worship. Amen. You don't have to worry about being shot while you're there. Amen. But a lot of people do that. Matter of fact, what's his name? He's dead in hell right now. He didn't get saved before he died. Ted Turner. You know what his problem was? He said, God is not real. Why? Because his sister got sick. He prayed she would get healed. She never did. She died. He's hated God ever since. I hope he got saved before he died. But then second of all, there's those that will abandon God, but then there's those that when tragedy comes, it accelerates their praise towards God, realizing God is all they have. In the midst of my hurt and my pain, man can't do nothing for me. All God's all I've got. I love this passage. I love it. One of my favorite in all the Word of God is in John chapter 6. And Jesus has asked the 12 disciples, He said, are all of you going to go away? Are you going to scatter too? Are you going to abandon me like all these others have after I've explained to them what it's like to be a disciple? Then Simon Peter answered, Lord, to whom shall we go? Only Thou hast the words of eternal life. Where else are you going to go? Where else are you going to go? When all hell comes against you, all life caves in on you, you're going to abandon the only one that's got a lifeline for you? No, surely not. In other words, genuine worship. If you want to get real about it, I'm so tired of performances when it comes to worship. But genuine worship is not distracted by crisis situations that enter into our lives. That's how you know it's real. Because right when you're going at dead bottom, and all you do is look up. Or you may not even be able to raise your hand, but inside you're raising your hand and you're giving God praise. That's genuine worship. Daniel faced the tragedy of bad law. Remember the bad law of the land? Babylon? Saying you can't do any more praying. If there's any praying, you got to do it to none. The Bible said he just did what he always did. He opened up the windows like he always did. He aimed toward the east, toward Jerusalem. He just prayed to God. Like he wasn't going to be hindered by his worship. How about Paul and Silas? They've had the shit beat out of them, shackled for their faith. Did that keep them from praising God? Absolutely not. They're in the prison cell. Praise me. Matter of fact, it's got some other ones down there shaking up a little bit, listening to them praising God. Next thing you know, the jailhouses are rocking, the shackles are falling off, and I love that story. That dude's getting this so hell, they've all escaped. I'm getting ready to do it. Hey, don't do that. We all still here. Then he said, what must I do to be saved? I like that. How about the apostles? They were threatened, mistreated, but they kept on preaching. How about Shadrach? You women are looking at the book of Daniel. How about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? They were condemned to death if they didn't bow to the image of Nebuchadnezzar. Did that hinder them? No! They kept on standing. They kept on standing. Wouldn't you like to have been a fly on the... Everybody's doing this, and here's these 3 old boys just standing there. And one of them I said to us, if you think we stand out, yeah, we probably do. They said we ain't bowing. Their loyalty to God was paramount above all other matters or occurrences in their life. Their worship was not just lip service, it was a life of service for them. Amen? Like the psalmist said, I will bless the Lord at all times. Glorify ye the Lord in the fires. The book of Isaiah. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they did just that. They glorified God in the fire. And I'm telling all you young people here tonight, you're going to see the day in this country unless a great revival comes again. Where you better learn to give Him glory in the fire because you're going to be in it most of the time. You're going to be in it. You better learn now. No matter what everybody else says, no matter what everybody does, don't you do to please man, you do to please God. Just make up your mind now. I'm going to give Him all. He's paramount in my life. Let them say what they may. Let them talk about me, mock me, make fun, and just say that's the way they did my Lord. Hallelujah. And I'm just going to join Him in His suffering because I know for this is just a light affliction just for a moment. It'll soon be over. You know, I'm reminded of Pastor Rod Mattoon. He writes a lot of books, and he's got them there camp meeting the total. He says in one of his books, he said, trauma, tribulation, trials, or trouble will reveal if we like God, love God, or love God. Trauma burns away the camouflage and religious cosmetics of a fake faith or false profession in Jesus. Trials reveal what one really believes and the degree of their faith. And Job, while in the crucible of catastrophe, he is worshiping God. You want to know if you, kids, you want to know if you really got it? You ever demonstrated at school? You'll not get with that crowd. Acts like the devil. You want to find God's crowd somewhere. Those that want to act a little like Jesus and be shining like the midst of darkness, that's where you'll go. You'll not be threatened by that other crowd. That's how you'll shine. Job's expression of praise, Job's expression of pain, but also Job's expression, this is the way I put it, of possession. His attitude toward his possessions. Look at verse 21. I told you I'm going to get into this thing, so you hang in with me. Y'all just listen, Pastor, we get done. Naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Amen. I forgot who the famous black preacher was. I can see his face as clear as a bell. His wife died. He be healed. And that's what he preached, his wife's funeral. He called his wife babe. I think that's what he called her. He said, let me tell you about my babe. He said, people always called and making threats on my life. He said, you know what babe would do every day? While I was getting ready, she'd done got my coffee made. She'd go out there every morning, she'd get the key on. The key thing would go out there and crank my car. Why'd she do that? She said, just in case somebody put a bomb in my car. But at her funeral, he said, the Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away. But he blessed him. Bless him. I read that, and first thing, notice Job, he looked back to when he got here. He said, naked came I out of my mother's womb. Get that? He said, I didn't come here with nothing. And then he looked ahead to when he would leave here, and he said, hey, and I ain't leaving here with anything either. He said, and the Bible says we bring nothing into the world, and in church we carry nothing out. But praise God, aren't you glad we can sit to the head? We can't sit to the head. Now we got to get this. Job did absolutely nothing to deserve the removal of God's blessings upon his life. Matter of fact, if you look at chapter 2, verse 3, God himself acknowledges that when he said to Satan, thou movest me against him to destroy him without cause. And that's another topic for next Sunday night. We'll get more theological with that one. But Job did nothing to deserve the removal of God's blessing. Nothing. But get this. This is important. You really ponder on this. But neither did Job do anything to deserve God's blessing. You see, that's where many mess up. They think they deserve it. All of life's blessings are really undeserved loans, if you will. Even our children. They're all, and that being so, we shouldn't get angry with God when he retrieves a blessing from us. That's the reason Paul said, I have learned in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content. And folks, that's a big thing there. You learn to be content with what God has given you. What God has allowed you to have. But rest assured, now let me say this, rest assured that one unearned possession that God will never take away from us is the spiritual blessings pertaining to that of our salvation. Salvation is not a loan, praise God, it's a gift given forevermore. Amen. So that's one thing you'll never have taken away, child of God. But Job was saying, here's what Job said, naked I came into the world, naked I'm going to leave it. I didn't bring nothing in, I ain't taking nothing out. And then what he's doing to Job was simply saying, I'm not going to get tripped up over losing something that wasn't mine anyway. Yeah. In Philippians chapter 3, it tells us what things were gained to me. Remember Paul in his testimony? Those things that were gained to me, those things that made me so popular, things that really got me, noted and seen and all that before I met Jesus on the Damascus Road. Those things that were gained to me, I counted loss for Christ. And do count them but what? Dung. Yeah. That I may win Christ, that I may know him, and the power of his resurrection, and the fellowship of his suffering. He said anything I've been given in this world don't amount to nothing compared to what I've got in Jesus. Obsession with possessions will lead to depression. Real quick. Obsession with possessions will always create conflict with your devotion to him. Go back to Matthew, Matthew chapter 6. You cannot serve two masters. You can't serve God and mammon. You got to listen. I remember, some of you remember, if you saw it, I saw it, loved it. Matter of fact, I thought about it today. Any of y'all get to see Darrell Waltrip when he stood in the prayer breakfast in Washington? He blew me away. What he done, the first thing we opened was showed the bad car wreck he had. I mean, son, he ought to be killed in that car wreck. And here's what he said. That wreck is what saved my life. He said, when you flipping around and around, 150, 200 miles an hour, and you're doing this in the air, and pieces flying around, he said, makes you think of things. He said, I realize just how short my life really is. And praise the Lord, I never did like the man. I thought he was a smart aleck, didn't like him. But after I watched that, I fell in love with him. Yeah. He'll let Obama know right quick, you don't know Jesus is your personal Savior, you're going to die and go to hell. Yeah. But not just Obama, everybody at the table. Everybody there. And my, what a testimony he gave. But I'm here to tell you, God can and does take away those things that from us that tends to pull us away from Him. Child of God, don't be so plugged into this world and drawn to the things of this world that God has to start taking things away from you to get your attention back. Be careful of that. God will take away from us so as to mature us. I mean, everybody remember training wheels? Those were wonderful things. Until they got taken away. What good parent would do that? You know, you wreck and fall and bust your kneecaps. Put them back! But you know why they took them all? It's time for you to grow up and mature. I'm looking at Hannah's little scooter over there. I don't know why I did that. But let's take it away, Gage, and watch your heart. Anyway, let's get this going. Listen, nothing will help your present situation, though. And I'm about done. I'm going to get there, I promise. Nothing will help your present situation like looking back to the past will. Again, with what Job said. Job said there was a time when I was I'm paraphrasing, there was a time when I was a nobody, but God made me a somebody. There was a time I had nothing, but God gave me everything. When you get to thinking God is against you, and the devil would certainly try to get you to get to that point, God's against you, what you need to do is take a look back at Calvary. Amen. And he who spared not his only son, He's given His best for you already. When Satan starts telling you God doesn't care about you, go look in your closet. You say, what do you mean by that? Remember what you once had hid in your closet to keep others from seeing. Remember what you once, I could say liked having in your closet. Remember, you were once an alien, without hope and without God. But not now. Nothing will help you more in your present situation like looking back, see where He brought you from. That's the reason I love Kim's song this morning. It wasn't really the song so much, it's just her attitude. Because it was her witness, her testimony. Thank God He didn't throw this chunk of clay away. Hallelujah. Nothing will help your present situation like peering into the future will. Job said in chapter 13, verse 18, I know, he said, I know, even in the midst of my pain, my hurt, I don't understand, but this one thing I do know I shall be justified. And then right in the midst of all that tragedy, I love this, you've heard the song written about it, in Job chapter 19, he cried out, I know my Redeemer liveth, and he will stand at the latter day upon the earth, and though after my skin worms destroy this body, yet in my flesh I shall see God. He knew that. You know, I got to quit. Remember, look at verse 11. Let's go back. And I promise you ain't going to start back over. Remember what Satan said Job would do if he stripped him of everything? Remember that? He said, the only reason he worships you, praises you, God, because you're spoiled and rotten. I can't get to him. But you take away all the stuff. What did he say he'll do? He said he'll curse you. Now here's the neat. I just now caught this week. Never seen it before. Till this week. I'm going to ask you a question. Did Job curse God? Don't answer that too quick. The same word used for curse is the same word used for blessing. Same Hebrew word, barak. Of all things, barak. It wasn't no bomb either. Barak. Did Job curse God? Remember, the devil, God says, he's got the devil in him. He'll curse same word, Barak, but he wasn't cursing. He was blessing.
Amen.
He made the devil look like an idiot. But you know, it works the same way in our English language. The word bless, for instance. You know, old Southern Lee, Mama blessed me by having chicken fried when I got home for supper. Or, Mama blessed me out when I tracked that bug on Mama. You see, same way. That just proves Joe was from Southern us. I didn't say us. But Job said in verse 21, blessing. That means thanks and praise be to the name of the Lord. And one can simply say, Job glorified God while he humiliated the devil. In other words, Satan's attacks against Job didn't drive Job away from God. It drove Job to God. The last verse, chapter 1, tells us, in all this Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. This don't talk so much about as to what Job said, but what he didn't say about God. You know, when something bad happens, we tend to say something, to make accusations, to come up with some sort of reason why, to find someone to blame. The list goes on. Job didn't do that. He refused to say God acted inappropriately. He refused to say that God acted in his life without reason, without rhyme. But what he did was to fall on his face and honor God. Trusting in God to see him through. Well, one would assume the test has been given. Job proved he wasn't going to curse God if you take away all his blessings. He was worshiping God because he loved him. Well, that's over with. Wrong. We'll get to that other test next Sunday night. It wasn't over with. And may I say, excuse me, it'll never be over with, even in your life. Not until Jesus comes again. Might as well get ready after spiritual warfare, because it's coming. One way or another, it's coming. You will be put to the test. The question is, are you going to be close enough to him that where you can still worship him in the midst of it all? Or are you going to be one of those that be a turncoat? He don't owe you nothing, but he loves you so much that he's given you everything. Let's have a hymn of invitation, John. No. Yeah, come on. Yeah, I want to have an invitation. Maybe you want to come to the altar tonight because then we are.